In this lecture series, we're going to discuss art criticism and constructive analysis. And so we want to define, as always, we want to define the parameters of what we're talking about just so that we're all on the same page. I have, in my life, seen numerous arguments over people who agree, between people who agree because they both held different definitions of a term or an idea. So let's start off by defining what we're talking about. So what we're talking about is constructive analysis, which is in opposition to negative or general criticism. You know, the word criticism has the connotation of being negative. We're not talking about being negative. We are talking about feedback, assessment. Those words are a little less, seen a little less in a negative light. We're talking about giving someone information that they can use to strengthen their work. So the goal is to identify at least one issue or problem that someone's work has and to get them to think about why there's the problem. And we want to do all of this in a very positive way. It does not mean that everyone follows this. But we're going to, and we're going to talk about why, because you guys know I like to talk about the psychology behind things, because I think it's important to understand why. It helps you remember information better if you understand the mechanics of it. So, essentially, when you come at someone and say, you, by personalizing it, right? If you personalize it and you come at someone in a you manner, they get defensive. They most of the time are going to reject what you have to say. Some people will let it percolate. My brother was like that. I could tell him something, he would get mad, but later on he would come to me with this great idea he had, and it would be whatever I'd said. So we just want to remove the personal, because this is never ever about the person. It is only ever about the work and how to help people see things in their work that maybe they don't see. And I'm going to tell you, someone you're going to receive feedback, assessment, and constructive analysis. Take it for what it is. It is not about you. Most of the time, faculty who are giving you that don't know you as a person at all. So it's not personal. And you'll end up getting in your own way if you make it personal. See it for what it is. Even if someone doesn't deliver it in a fashion that feels constructive, tell yourself that it is constructive, because that is the goal. Also, people are going to give you feedback that you don't agree with. I've had that happen. I've had people say this or that about my work, and I didn't agree with them. And I said, thank you, but no, I didn't do anything with I processed it, but I didn't do anything with their changes because I didn't agree with them. So you're going to have that. Just because someone gives you feedback for your work does not automatically make it valid, because it sort of depends on who it's coming from. I mean, an expert has more validity in general than someone who's not, just because they have studied the process. And that's why you're going to get feedback specifically from faculty who have been certified to give you feedback as experts. Again, it doesn't mean that you have to apply it. It's just meant for consideration in some cases. Well, we'll talk more about this as we go through. It's just kind of nebulous to talk about it like that. But so Frank Gehry, Pritzker Prize winning architect. If you've heard of an architect, you've likely heard of Frank Gehry. He is very well known. Most architects are anonymous. He is not. He's also in his 90s, so he's been around a while. He is an expert. But still, if he told me something about my project and I didn't agree with him, I might not do what he said, but I'm certainly going to listen to the man, and I'm certainly going to think about what he said and if there's anything I can take away from that. Because I will tell you, over the years, when I was younger, it was sometimes hard to hear feedback and it was not always delivered kindly. But I have found that people have often said things that I thought about them, and they led me to a better solution. So here he's talking with a student. He's given some feedback to students on their models. And so the thing we have to keep in mind is that when we're looking at our project all the time, it's just like when you write something. Let me give you an analogy. I do this all the time, right? I write something and I send it, and then it comes back with a response. And so that I'm aware of what the response means, because maybe it's a few days later, I go back and read my original email and I was like, uh-oh, how did I not see this typo in my original email? And that's what's going to happen with your work. You're going to be so fixated on looking at it that you're going to miss things. And so having someone else look at them and point them out is very helpful in allowing you to fix those mistakes or solve those problems, so that you don't put it out to a client and then the client goes, what were you thinking? Right? And so in this case, the constructive criticism or feedback is saving you from embarrassment or having a client upset because you missed something, or there's a problem with the design. You're going to have students, or you're going to have clients who are going to give criticism of all forms, no matter what. I once, when I was a young architect, I once had a doctor for a client who was moving into a new space, and he told us what he needed, and I came up with a floor plan, because that's where you start. And I came up with a floor plan to make sure it fit, because it was a space. You sort of had to, it was like putting puzzle pieces in a box. And it's just something this is one of my things I've always been really good at, is I've been very good at planning. And so I fit all the pieces in. I made sure it had all the connections he said it needed. I made sure code worked out. I made sure, right? And all the things that I needed to do, I did my job. And I came up with a floor plan, but I did a couple iterations, because you never really just want to go to a client and say, here's your solution. You want to go in with alternates, so they know you've considered more than just what you've presented to them. But, I told him which one I thought was the solution, and he looked at it and he said, well, let me try. I always wanted to be an architect. So, okay. He faxed me, because back then people faxed things. He faxed me 34 different arrangements that he came up with. And there was something wrong with every single one of them. And so, I had to now give my client constructive criticism. So all I did was I remained fact-based, and I just said, okay, so, I wrote on every single one of them. I just circled issues and just said, well, this, we have a code compliance concern here, or, this is a dead end corridor, we can't do this, or, you want these, you wanted these to do this, you can't go through a storage closet, it violates code. They were mostly code violations. And I did that for all 34 plans he sent me and faxed them back. And he said at that point, oh, okay, well, let's go with your original plan. It really is the best solution. I was like, well, dude, that's why you hired me. So, these things happen. And the best thing you can do is just remove yourself from it as a person. It is not personal. It's about the solution to the work. And we can always appreciate when someone sees something and helps us fix it. And that's how I look at it. And it keeps it from being disturbing or upsetting. And so that's what, this series of slides in this range talks about. That you want to make sure you understand that in constructive criticism is not personal. Brace yourself when it's coming. It's an effort to make you stronger critical thinkers, better designers, and just more knowledgeable about the field you work in. And so I've just done this for so long, I can look at something and pull from my unconscious toolbox, storage container, and give you advice. And you're learning and building up yours. So I often will, if I'm working on something, I often will send it to someone else. Now, me, that's a peer that I respect who has experience to take a look at and tell me what's missing. And they do the same with me. And we strengthen each other's work. Constructive criticism is a positive thing. So if we start off from the very beginning, and that's why I'm talking about this in the beginning in module 1, if you can start off with the understanding that this is a good thing, this is something you want, this is something you should seek, it makes it a lot easier to deal with it. And this is very, very true. No one has ever gotten to be the best at anything without getting feedback from other people about how they can improve. And that's why this is a positive, necessary part of the process. We are going to do this as you guys start doing projects and start doing work. We're going to look at your work and give each other constructive feedback. You need to learn how to do this yourselves because you're going to be expected to do it in industry. Okay. And so we're going to practice, and so that you can get really good at it. And I will tell you that I taught high school before I got into college. It only lasted a year and a half. The students were lovely. I loved my students. In fact, I still keep in touch with some of them from, that was 15 years ago. They're grown adults now. But I have one who still thanks me for having him present his work and receive constructive feedback, because he said that it made him more confident as a person. Because that's what happens when you start presenting your work. You have to sell it. And so what you do is you get really good at explaining to people what you've done to help them understand what you've done. And that helps you get better feedback. Sorry for all the dings. Actually, let me stop this one here and we'll continue in the next video.